Hello people of the earth and welcome to QuickSave TV. My name is Mike and today I'm going to answer several community questions. And to start off, I'd like to say that my opinion on questions is similar with the opinion of one of my teachers, which actually teaches the quantitative economical disciplines. And he said the following: the quality of the lesson depends directly on the quality of the questions asked. Therefore, students may be more important to the lesson than actual teacher. And I couldn't agree more. So, in order for me to actually give you proper and interesting answers, you should ask best possible questions. So if you would like to be featured in the future just like this, go ahead and give a shot, try to ask me your questions in comments or send me a message. Ooh, excuse me, I just did some push-ups and I'm trying to breathe. So, now, the two questions come from Ragmesesis and Rio Light Orb. Okay, let's start with the Ragmesesis. His question was first and it was asked yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. It was essentially on 18th of May. So he asks the following, or let me just summarize it for you. He says that in 2012 we have Diablo 3, which is not really different from Diablo 2. They are so much alike that in fact it would be more logical if Diablo 3 would be released in 2008. And he says that interestingly enough, Skyrim, Dark Souls, and Kingdoms of Amalur look like the RPGs of 2012, whereas he still wants to buy Diablo 3, even though it's not also innovative. Okay, so there's several things actually to consider first, because in his examples for games that actually look like innovative and very new for 2012, I have to disagree. I mean, Skyrim by no definition looks new. I mean, it is essentially a refurbished and much improved version of Oblivion. Yes, it has a very fancy design, which makes you feel as if you were a cyborg in the world of the Nords, in the country of the Nords, in Skyrim. But essentially, it's just the same Oblivion to me, okay? I played over at least 500 hours of Oblivion, and maybe as much, if not more, modding of Oblivion. So, trust me, I know what I'm talking about. The Dark Souls doesn't look very innovative to me. I mean, it's just a port from a console, and Dark Souls, known for its brutal difficulty. I cannot wait to play it. Actually, in June, I think it comes out, and it just doesn't feel like a game of the future. Yeah, sure, it looks good. It has this hardcore difficulty, but how is that a game of the future, right? And Kingdoms of Amalur is just a mishmash of fantasy things in one setting altogether, with a very weird fighting system, which is, I apologize, but although it is innovative, it looks ridiculous in what it is, okay? There's so much combo attacks, you can combine them, but it doesn't look fantasy anymore. It's like Mortal Kombat with all kinds of weapons pulled together. I mean, is it truly innovative, or it's just an attempt to combine several genres? And it doesn't look all that impressive either, in my opinion. It's not that old kind of game, but with Diablo 3, it's a very interesting point he makes. He essentially says that the games are not so different, Diablo 3, Diablo 2, and that's one thing the Blizzard were constantly bashed about in the past and today, specifically about Diablo 3, is that we have the same gameplay, general understanding, we have the same gameplay, we kind of have similar features and a couple of new features, but it's essentially the old same game, with which I kind of have to disagree. But on this I will elaborate on the question of Rio Light Orb. In here, essentially, you want to buy it for several reasons. Although it doesn't look also different from Diablo 2, what it does perfectly. It manages to finally create this continuation of Diablo series, which we have been waiting for so long, and no Diablo clone were ever able to achieve it, okay? Many of them tried, many of them failed, okay? We had Loki, we had the Titan Quest, we had Torchlight, we had let me just remember, Blood Magic, we had Legend, Hand of God, and I played all of them. I've beat all of them and played for many hours. I really did, okay? It's not naked words. I have experience behind it. You don't have to agree with me. I'm just saying that I'm not just talking about it. I actually do know what I'm talking about. I tried all of them. I bought all of them, in fact. And yes, well, out of those I mentioned, only one was ever able to actually get close to Diablo 2. And this was Torchlight. And the Torchlight was essentially this one bold and very powerful game. No one would expect it to hit so hard. Torchlight managed to combine all of the things ever invented before it into one beautiful mix, and it was working beautifully, and it was just a great game. However, it had several minuses. Compared to other games, actually in the genre of action RPG, it had this gigantic boost, the plus, which Diablo always had over other games, and it's called the engine. Yes, you might not think about it, but the engine determines, the quality of the engine determines how do you actually experience the world. Do you stuck in walls? Do you get, let's say, do you get stuck in textures? Can you jump properly? Can you attack the enemies? Does it work flawlessly? And many games, especially today, that all the engines, majority of engines are 3D, it's very easy to fuck up with that, and it spoils the whole experience of the game, okay? A good example of the engine is the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. It's one of those companies, the Bethesda Entertainment. They were able to create a very good engine, and although it does screw up a couple of times here and there, it works pretty good. Okay, it's pretty solid engine. The example of a very bad engine, let me just remember. There was this game, Conflict, I think called Conflict Secret Ops, in which you could select two characters. There were two characters which you could switch between. One of them had heavy machine gun, another one had sniper rifle, if I'm not mistaken. So the problem with this game was the following. The engine just sucked balls. There were no better way to describe it. And because of that, the whole experience were wasted in the beginning. Like from the very beginning, no matter what the developers would do, because of the poor engine, you would get stuck when you would attempt to hide behind cover, you would get stuck in enemies, and enemies would get stuck in different places. It was ridiculous experience. I regret ever buying this game. But the thing is that Diablo 3 lures the players by its engine. The flawless design of the engine, the responsiveness of it, which can only be spoiled by the lag, which was not existent, I might add, in Diablo 1 and Diablo 2. We had, again, a powerful engine, very powerful, without any lag, without any difficulties, counting a lot of different things at the same time, and at the same time performing very well. For instance, the biggest problem I had in Loki, although I loved the game, I was playing as a barbarian, and the worst thing I've seen, constantly seen in the game, would be the following. I would run to the enemy, I would left mouse button him, right? I would click left mouse button on him to attack him, and what would happen? My barbarian, northern barbarian, I guess that's how you call him, he would teleport 1 inch, less than 1 inch, how to put it, he would teleport a couple of millimeters towards the enemy in the perfect position and alignment to attack him. And it would look so choppy that I hated the game. My eyes were hurting so bad, I hated it. The similar problem were in Titan Quest, not as much. Titan Quest was much better, much better designed, the engine-wise, but the problem with Titan Quest was this constant freezing, okay? These small little freezes, which kind of don't waste the whole experience, but they don't make it flawless, okay? In Diablo 3 we don't have it, you just don't have it. You play the goddamn game, you enjoy it at constant FPS, and it's awesome. However, in Diablo 3, the biggest problem right now is the latency, is the ping. Now, the problem is not with the engine, but with the ping. And I think the reason is why you want to buy Diablo 3 is actually coincides with the answer to the next question. So I guess it would be enough to talk about this question right now. I hope I answered it. And the remains of this question, the most important part, will be right now. I'll be coming right now. So the second question is from Rio Light Orb, and he asks, Mike, do you like the new Diablo graphics? Many people complain about it, but I think it's because when you finally destroy, spoiler, it had lighter touch. Many people complain about it being online, but if it wasn't, there would not be auction house or PvP, and it seems fair to me. Now, how I also see this is Diablo as the last, while Blizzard has the thing with 3. Okay, so we have Warcraft, he says Warcraft is better than Warcraft 3, Diablo is better than Diablo 3, Diablo 1. StarCraft 1 is better than StarCraft 2. I presume we will get a number 3, he said. Okay, so that's the question. Now, let me elaborate first. Let me just start with the first part of the question and then move to the second one, because the second one is more important in this case. What about Diablo graphics? Well, I think because they're kind of cartoonish, they are very colorful and cartoonish and very... It has this from, let's say, Korean RPGs where each of your attacks is kind of flashy, but not too flashy, which makes your eyes happy because there's enough happening on the screen and it's fun, but at the same time it's not too flashy. And plus added is this small cartoonish style of the graphic, which will allow the game to exist 5 years from now on easily, which happened with World of Warcraft. And because it had this beautiful cartoonish graphic, right, and at the same time it had flawless animation, it still looks fine. Nobody's like complaining. They like, oh, World of Warcraft looks shitty, but so many people still play it and they don't really complain about graphics. And it was the best they could do at the time, and they just decided to go cartoonish, whereas the games that attempted to go realistic, they now look shitty, okay? And that's the strategical plan to actually increase the longevity of the game, how long the game will be played from now on and later on, and how will it actually look. Then many people complain about being online. Well, actually, the thing is, I would agree with this complaint because I would love to be able to actually play the game when I'm offline, because I'm not able to be online at all times. Like, for instance, yesterday, uploading the video took me, listen to this, 14 goddamn hours, okay? More than half a day to upload one video. That was horrible. I could not play Tribes Ascent, I could not play Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, I could not play Diablo 3. All of them required to be online. Ridiculous. How can I be a gamer and upload videos to YouTube simultaneously? Holy shit, I wish they had an offline capability. And again, their main argument was to prevent hacking, because there would be real money tied into the picture. But then I have a question. During the beta of Diablo 3, there were news that the hackers actually managed to emulate the server for Diablo 3. Now my question is, since your system is so well defended and awesome, how the hell did they emulate your server? Huh? May I ask that? I mean, how does it make any goddamn sense? Well, it doesn't make to me. And then it says there would not be an auction house or PvP. Well, you know what PvP could be? I mean, in Diablo 2, you would actually just create a character on the server of Diablo 2, excuse me, and you would just play it, and you wouldn't be able to play your single player characters online, right? So you would have to create an online character from the beginning, and it just worked fine. I think there were again a lot of duping and hacking, which is a bad thing, but I still don't have a proof that it actually will be countered properly in Diablo 3, and I would like to see if they actually will be able to do that. Otherwise, the whole point was kind of, eliminated. And then auction house is probably a great invention. I like it a lot. The both golden auction house and real money auction house, although I don't have a really solid opinion on real money auction house as of yet, because it's very hard and a very complex topic to talk about. I cannot just summarize everything in one thing. There's good and bad things to it, and I really don't know. But the gold auction house is great, That's essentially what Diablo is. Diablo always was this grind and hunt for beautiful items to empower your character build. It was not so much hunting the monsters as much it was hunting for loot, and it still is. And addition of the auction house allows you to actually buy these things which you probably wouldn't be able to find yourself, to increase your chances to gear out your character, which is great, okay? And then his points, with which I completely disagree. I mean, what is it? Warcraft 3? Okay, let's just elaborate again. Warcraft 3 is better than Warcraft 3. Like, in what way, may I ask? I had the fortune to actually play Warcraft 1, and then I played Warcraft 3. Well, the thing what pissed me off in Warcraft 1 was that, well, I didn't really get frustrated because there were only 2 races. I just couldn't care. I could care less at the time. But the stiffness of the whole thing, of the operation. In order to move there, you have to press move command, and then you have to press on the ground. What the hell? How is that comfortable? and then you say that Warcraft 1 is better than Warcraft 3. In what way? There was no effective way to compete against other players because you had so many screwed up things and it was not so comfortable. Warcraft 3 had a gigantic GSL arena, World Cyber Games arena, centered on Warcraft 3 because of the way it was designed, addition of heroes, addition of 2 additional races, addition, right? It's so cool, and the engine worked so flawlessly well. And how can you say that Warcraft 1 was better than Warcraft 3? In what way? You will basically not be able to gather the proof for it. The sales of Warcraft 3 were higher than Warcraft 1. The Warcraft 3 engine it's immensely better than Warcraft. Again, it's the addition of the 3D. Plus then we have the addition of heroes, which were incorporated into the gameplay. And although it kind of shifted from the original Warcraft, it became this kind of RTS RPG mix-up, and it defined the genre for a lot of time after it. Then we have a formation of a competitive arena which would never existent in Warcraft 1. Then we have addition of the cutscenes editor in the map creator. There's just so many new things, and they were incorporated so well together, and the story elaborated into all of this. You could also play the campaign with a great story. I mean, how can you say that Warcraft 1 was better than Warcraft 3? I just brought you about 10 examples why it's not. And then we have Diablo 1 and better than Diablo 3. Now, I did not play immense amount of time of Diablo 3 quite yet. I did play 10 hours and watched for about 3 hours my friend streaming his gameplay as a monk. I cannot say it yet, but so far, I see what you're trying to say here. Okay, Diablo 1 is better than Diablo 3, but it's not. I mean, no matter how you're going to argue that. I mean, for me personally, Diablo 1 was better than Diablo 2, but none of them is better than Diablo 3 at this point, because I see how they actually tried very hard to incorporate new features in Diablo 3. They spent a lot of time iterating on them. They even removed some of the things because they didn't quite felt that it was working. Well, that is how do you improve the genre. Since Diablo 1 is better than Diablo 3, why don't you go play it right now? And probably you will, because it's your opinion, right? I mean, I'm not gonna say that your opinion is ridiculous or something. It's just that Diablo 1 had no mechanics within the game. No complex mechanics. What was in Diablo 1? Could you craft anything? No, you couldn't. Were there companions in Diablo 1? No, there weren't. Were there a complex leveling system? No, there wasn't. Every level you would just increase your stats, that was it. There was no skill system in the game. Diablo 2, even Diablo 2 is better than Diablo 1, okay, in that. Although I didn't like Diablo 2 quite as much, it's probably one of the games that I didn't like too much, but I still did it like 3 times. It had skill points. It had the addition of the crafting mechanics. It had so many new things compared to Diablo 1. It was better. And Diablo 3 is even better because it incorporates all these things and cuts off all the things that did not work quite as well. For me, Diablo 1 was better than Diablo 2 because I felt that Diablo 2 was an attempt by Blizzard to actually innovate in the genre, and it failed miserably, in my opinion. Not because they did something wrong, but because the features they added just didn't work. The intentions of which they had, they were good, but they couldn't have known how it would work out. For instance, the skill point innovation. The skill trees they innovated in Diablo 2, they are used in countless games. Up to this point, they were used in their iterations on them were used in Blood Magic. Iterations of them were used in Titan Quest. Iteration of them were used in Loki. Iteration of them was used in Torchlight. I mean, you're serious? And then so many mechanics they add, like rune words on the most simple weapons which you could add. I felt that it was just not finished, this mechanic, and it was just, there were so many mechanics that were not finished in Diablo 2, not refined. They were new and they were experimental, and everyone were following them without actually trying to create something of their own. The Horadric Cube, you know, and all these things, they just didn't quite work as well as I wanted them to be, right? And then we have Diablo 3, which attempts, in so many years, attempts to refine all these things into one and actually boil it all down to the perfect gaming experience in an action RPG genre. But, you know, what did you expect them to do? Did you expect them to create the whole new game from the scratch? Did you want them to just stop iterating and just create a whole new game altogether? Or did you want them to actually iterate on their own game, with which I might add they invented the genre of action RPG and make a perfect experience, from which now, trust me, there's going to be so many Diablo 3 clones in the future. I don't consider Torchlight 2 Diablo clone just because it was simultaneously developed and because Torchlight 2 is probably one of the most successful action RPGs out there. In my opinion, it's second only to Diablo 3. Because of the way it's done, because of the attention it's put in details that are put, and there's so many mechanics they actually innovated themselves. The pet system, you know, which were existent in the games prior to the Torchlight. I mean, I might add people who created Torchlight 2 and Torchlight 1, they actually worked on these games with these pet systems. But the thing is that they iterate on changes, you see. They iterate and they try to innovate, but innovate in such a manner that it will not ruin the gaming experience and will improve the game. Because if you just innovate, it does not necessarily mean that you will improve the game. That's what happened in Diablo 2, in my opinion. They kind of rushed, implemented all of these mechanics, and I just hated them. I hated them with all my heart. For instance, this skill system. Excuse me, with all due respect, it's retarded. I mean, how can you actually defend it? I mean, you don't say it, you say Diablo 1, but I'm saying Diablo 2, it's the collaboration of both questions. You know, I'm answering to both of them simultaneously because they closely coincide. Diablo 2 versus Diablo 3. I mean, excuse me, the skill system in Diablo 2, as I said, was retarded. It's impossible. Like, it was impossible to comprehend and defend it. Like, what the hell? Playing as a barbarian, selecting skills, blah blah blah, selected. Then I suddenly realized, oh good god, I want to change something. And I have one free respec, and I use it like, you know, what the hell, free respec? And then I realize, and that's people on the internet telling me, not the actual game, I realize that the next time I will be able to respec will not be very soon. Will begin when I actually will start doing battle runs, which is not gonna happen because I'm not gonna play the game so long, and that means that I'm essentially forced to have the same shitty skills I've selected which don't work out with my build, and I'm really frustrated and I have to roll with it. There's no choice for me. Whereas in Diablo 3, if you make any mistakes, the game actually encourages you to experiment. You can easily reset all your skills without paying any fees. You just can experiment and actually design your builds easily. Design the build, go ahead and try it. Don't like shake with every mouse button click, because before, in Diablo 2, that's what it was. You were shaking with every click of the mouse. You was like, are you sure? Are you certainly sure you want to do that? Because if you're not, you're fucked for the remainder of the game. Okay, enough of that. Like, you see my point, right? And then again, StarCraft is better than StarCraft 2. Excuse me, in what way? StarCraft 2 is essentially StarCraft 1 in a new engine, which behaves differently, but behaves better. It provides for better competitive environment. In what way? Because it's 3D, right? It looks modern. It attracts much more players due to that, and its mechanics are much more forgiving than in StarCraft 1. In StarCraft 1, there were a whole art of how to send your probes and workers to minerals. I mean, excuse me, yes, I understand, but with all due respect, do you really expect people to wanting to do that today? Is that it? You want them to manually send their workers to mine? What is this, right? These things became normal, you know, automatic sending of workers to mine. And since StarCraft 2 is essentially StarCraft 1 iteration, it's not even an iteration, it's the same goddamn game in a 3D engine with addition and removal of several units, but it's the same game. How can you say that StarCraft 1 is better than StarCraft 2? If it is, then why the hell so many competitive players from StarCraft 1 have moved to StarCraft 2 to actually compete in this new arena? If it's worse, why the hell StarCraft 2 receives such a widespread support on everywhere? Okay, on so many arenas. Even if you're a casual player, there's so many places to go to compete for money, and it's just insane. How is that worse, right? It's like StarCraft is like chess. If there is a closest example to chess in video games, that's StarCraft. What is StarCraft? You have 3 races. Each race has their unique things, the specific times in the game when they're strong, when they're weak. They have their units, and you have to know so many things, and that is it. You do not change it dramatically. There was no need to change it. That is why it's the best RTS for today. There's nothing better. And you know that. There's nothing better RTS than StarCraft 2. Like, for instance, today, if someone would ask me, Hey Mike, I want to buy an RTS. What can you suggest? StarCraft 2. Hey Mike, I want to buy an RPG. What can you suggest? Diablo 3. These are, genre defining games. And StarCraft 2 didn't need to change a lot compared to StarCraft 1. And although, they could have, they could have risked at the same time losing all of their community base, and they could have risked, the changing the game too much to the point when it wouldn't be recognizable and it wouldn't be the original StarCraft. And that would be a problem, because you don't dramatically change chess. Because if someone right now creates, let's imagine the original creator of chess is still alive, right? And he decides to make a chess 2, chess 2. He will not make dramatic changes. He will remove some units, add some other figures, remove some figures and add some other figures. That's it. He's not gonna make dramatic changes. Why? Because it's chess. And if you think it's wrong, then why the hell does it exist for several thousand years and people still play it, huh? And why the hell there's championships on chess and people still play it, huh? How it cannot be worse. It's just how it is. These games became classic, and that's how you improve them. You don't change them dramatically. You don't need this change, because people will buy it anyway, because it's classic in the genre. That's what it is. And in order to actually improve it and create a new series, right, you just need to iterate on some of the changes. Okay, that would be enough for today. I thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like me to answer your beautiful questions in the video such as this, go ahead and comment and make as wonderful question, as good question as you can. I will answer only the very best, only the most interesting of them. And you can, of course, send me a message to quicksavetv@gmail.com if you want to send me a question personally. It was a great joy to actually sit here and talk to you about it. I hope it was enjoyable. If you're new to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because it helps me immensely and costs you nothing. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Have a greatest day, and bye-bye. I'm sure, goddammit, 100 years after, if we have nuclear war and we'll die, the whomever will make excavation on our human race, they will find cities with Counter-Strike 1.6, they will be amazed. How did we play this shit back then? Yeah, that's right. Amazing game. This is just impossible.